inspired the creation of the Get Ready, Get Prepared initiative, and how has it evolved over the years? What would you say?
As you recall, back in 2017, St. Martin was hit by two major hurricanes, which is Hurricane Irma and Hurricane Maria. And from ever since then, we have noticed an uptick in the amount of discussions when it comes to hurricane preparedness. So instead of just simply continuing the discussion, the department decided to organize these particular sessions to ensure that the community, and in particular our community partners, have the relevant information, have the relevant skills, right, and knowledge so that they will be able to respond in the event of a hazard or a disaster, as it were. And
Okay.
of course, hurricane preparedness takes on different dimensions. It goes beyond just simply boarding up one's doors, boarding up one's windows. Of course, it covers many, many different areas, from first aid to shelter management to knowing more about weather systems and so forth. So after consulting with our community partners, we were able to put together a program that would cover those different dimensions that would be of value to the intended audience. So that's basically how it came about.
Okay, so let's hone in on that. What specific
Sure.
objectives do you aim to achieve with this year's information sessions? Anything special?
Excellent. Ultimately, we are hoping to trigger a culture, a mindset of advanced preparedness. Many a times, some pockets within our community would wait until the announcement of a tropical storm or a hurricane, then to start making their bulk purchases, then starting to do their checks when it comes to their the safety and security of their home. But we are saying, when it comes to hurricane preparedness, you should start at least in December. And why do I say December? December, we know, is we just observe St. Martin's Thanksgiving, where we give thanks that we were spared or did not have a very significant hurricane season. And of course, based on that, then the preparations should start. So as early as December. You know, Cedric, we prepare for Christmas, we prepare for all sorts of activities. So we can also incorporate this particular activity in our day-to-day lives also. Because when it comes to preparation plays such an important key, not only to minimize damage to property, saving lives, but it plays an essential role when it comes to our recovery. So I don't want to jump too far ahead, right? I don't want to jump too far ahead, but it's really to inspire persons to take part in advanced planning. So whether it is planning your evacuation, whether it is planning where persons of your family will shelter, we want to, inspire persons to have those conversations and to start putting those preparations into motion.
Okay, so how does the schedule of topics specifically reflect the community's needs for hurricane preparedness? You touched on a few points already when it comes to, for example, encouraging, which I like, advanced preparation in December, because we're coming out of the last season. Don't sleep, don't put off, jump right into preparation.
That's
because
right.
we only have a matter of time before we're into the new season of
That's
hurricane.
right.
So how does the schedule this year reflect the community's needs for hurricane preparedness?
Excellent. So just to backtrack a bit, last year we had the program, right? The Get Ready, Get Prepared program. And of course, just like any program, it is necessary to evaluate, right? So when we evaluated, we had discussions with the facilitators, we had discussions with our target groups, and based on the feedback that they offered us, we were able to make some critical improvements. For example, of course, we've been working with several organizations for the past 4 years, but this year we've also, partnered with new organizations. For example, on the list, we would have a presentation by Steph Logics on food safety. Now, one would ask, what does food safety have to do, right, with hurricane preparedness? Well, what I'll tell you is that the Ministry of VSR, or the Ministry of Public Health, Social Development and Labor, and more specifically, Community Development, Family and Humanitarian Affairs, we often partner with organizations with a food kitchen or a soup kitchen. We also are involved with the distribution of food parcels for persons in need. So we want to ensure that whoever we are working with, those community partners, have the requisite skills and knowledge, and they are familiar with the best practices when it comes to observing hygiene compliance. You see? Because God forbid, Cedric, while we are in the motion of delivering food or preparing food, that something should happen, and create a health hazard, then we would have a storm within a storm.
Absolutely.
So again, based on the feedback, and I really have to commend, the past participants and as well as the facilitators for providing us with this insight. Because with this insight, we can make it more meaningful to the intended audience, so that they in turn will be able to provide an invaluable service to the communities which they serve. So with regards to the weekly sessions, so it will be every week starting on May 6th until the 9th of June. All sessions are free of charge. All sessions start at 6:30 until 8:30 and takes place in conference room 1 and 2 in the Government Administration Building.
Madam Chair, we need this meeting ASAP. ASAP, ASAP, because the explanation that is given today doesn't make it any better in my view. It was sugar-coated, and it sounds like this was the most perfect government in the whole wide world, and the big bad parliament messed up the budget. And then we're randomly picking amendments, but we're picking an amendment which was budget neutral and was advised by the minister to take a different route. So today, to randomly put the amendment that we had, I find this a bit strange. Because when I hear this, Madam Chair, through you, it feels like this was the first parliament ever to submit amendments. The first parliament ever. Because everything that I heard today is if the parliament didn't do this and the parliament didn't do that, Madam Chair. And Madam Chair, we have asked, we speak about transparency, we are now in April. And at a certain point, things that we are now going to finally start to work on could have happened already. Madam Chair, to the Honorable Minister of Finance, I see that you said a new budget is coming, will be presented. But the new budget will have the amendments that is our amendments in it. But then it's the same budget. That's where I'm lost. So a new budget will become, but it's the same budget, but the budget will have the amendments in it, and then you're adding the SCDF amendments, so it's not the same budget. The whole purpose, Madam Chair, of the budget in the first place, when the budget was brought, it was said that in the next 6 weeks it's coming back with amendments. So which means that, in essence, the government itself was not satisfied with the budget. So I know that it could not expect Parliament to be satisfied, hence the reason so much amendments to the budget. Because no one, well, I'll speak on my end, in my faction, was satisfied. However, there are questions that are being asked to me. The Honorable Minister of Justice was one of the only ministers that started the presentation by saying, I cannot work with this budget. But one of the main reasons, Madam Chair, that I said okay to this budget was the fact that I actually saw in the presentation the Honorable Minister of Justice had payments ready to go to the justice workers. And now we are seeing unrest. And when they ask us, or ask me as a member of Parliament, I have nothing to say, I don't know. Because in my statement to support the budget, I stated that one of my main reasons is that these justice workers can start to receive money. When we are asked about, now we see a spike and all of a sudden GB is going back off again, and they're asking, what is the update with the generators? When are they going to be there? I can say, I don't know. When we're asking about different aspects that was in the budget, I don't know. And then we seek transparency in communication. So, Madam Chair, I thank you for having this agenda in today's meeting, but it just piqued my interest even more and gave me more questions. So I cannot wait until we actually have the meeting pertaining to the budget itself, since I can't ask the 20 questions that I want to ask.
I would like to hearken based on what my colleague just said. To you, Madam Chair, Minister of Finance, I'm very, very disappointed in seeing the random amendment that was chosen, especially when my name is bold and broad on it. We did our due diligence as members of Parliament, the three of us, and it was presented. And as my colleague just mentioned, we were requested to make a change in it by the Honorable Minister of Finance. And today, on public screen, we are thrown under the bus. Minister, this thing got me quite upset about it. But I would like clarity as to specifically what was wrong within the amendment that caused this budget not to be ratified the way it's supposed to be at this time. That will be all for me, Madam Chair.
I remember in December of 2024 when I mentioned hartstikke spoed is zelden goed. Reason being, because I was requesting to allow us a little bit more time, an hour I think I asked for, and that was shot down because we just started to receive documents about the budget. And my whole point was things were being rushed down our throat. We had no time to properly process it, yet we were expected to have clear dialogue on it. Fast forward, Madam Chair, we are here today, April 14th, back in the circle of not having proper information, not having enough time to divulge and go into it. I heard the minister mention through you, Madam Chair, if there were no amendments, there would be no issues with the budget. But I could clearly remember even a member of the coalition clearly highlighting where notes in the budget were clearly referencing 2024 when we were handling the 2025 budget. That had nothing to do with amendments, Madam Chair. I also see all the examples given as to why things went wrong. But I remember, Madam Chair, before the budget is even voted upon, each minister took their time to eloquently explain why they agreed with those particular amendments. There even was a special opportunity based on the random example that was given on the screen here today, where a third round was given for the Member of Parliament, La Cruz, to go back into it based on consultation with the minister. So to hear today, Madam Chair, that it's Parliament's fault and all what Parliament did, it's quite unfortunate, and I really, really, really hope that the government could dive deep into taking some kind of accountability for what is happening here today. Madam Chair, I clearly asked during that debate, did this go back to legal affairs for proper vetting for verification? The minister then mentioned it was not necessary. Today we see a different story on the screen, Madam Chair, based on the presentation. Now we're hearing that amendments are going to come for SCDF, it's going to come for AZ with the Teweyo and Carnival, yet we don't hear anything about the revenue-generated measures that was promised to us 6 months ago. Because 6 months ago, when we asked questions, it was told, you know, this is a conservative budget, et cetera, et cetera. In the amendment in May, we will then get all the revenue-generating points. That was not even discussed here today. I also heard, Madam Chair, and this is a question that I would like clarity on through you. Parliament does not want to approve the text that was submitted. I would like to know through you, Madam Chair, which Parliament? Because I don't remember ever having the opportunity to approve and or disapprove any text. What I do remember was a long letter with memos, and the budget was sent to Parliament. When I asked the SG, the competent authority, to give an explanation as to what is expected from us, I also sent information and emails to the Presidium. No response, Madam Chair. So to hear that we had to approve, I would like to know through you, was it that the Chair of Parliament had to approve this text, or was it that members of Parliament had to approve and didn't want to approve?
It's time for a new brand that is as bold, vibrant, and colorful as the island of St. Martin, with colors drawn from our diversity, cultural heritage, and nature. Our breathtaking beaches, waters, and sun, the majestic brown pelican, our national symbol, the radiant yellow sage, our national flower, the historic border monument signifying the Dutch and French sides, our exciting cruise, yachting, and boating ports, renowned Maho Beach and St. Martin Airport, the hub to the Caribbean. All these parts come together to create the shape of the island of St. Martin. More than a logo. It's a new brand that engages, excites, and will inspire travelers to book. It's time to tell the St. Martin story, to reintroduce travelers to St. Martin, to honor our past, to embrace our present, and shape our future. Our culture and diversity, Dutch and French sides, unrivaled cuisine, twice the nightlife, entertainment, and shopping, cruises, boating, and yachting. Twice the adventure, exploration, and relaxation. Splendid and scenic accommodations. Pinel, Tentamar, and island hopping in the Caribbean. Whatever your taste, St. Martin has more. Experience twice the Caribbean. St. Martin.
I'd like to start that before the meeting yesterday, we sent a document, or the day before yesterday, summary annexes that points out some important documents we are referring to. And in this a presentation that we're making, sometimes we are referring back to these documents. So you can look it up yourselves if you need to. When the World Bank and NRPB began implementing projects in St. Maarten, our firm, that's ICE, saw this as a significant opportunity to expand our capacity and gain the experience necessary to compete regionally. We invested considerable time and resources to meet the requirements, and we're grateful for the opportunities we received. Between 2022 and 2020 until now, our company and our network of sub-consultants were engaged in numerous projects for the NRPB, including renovation of schools, shelters, gyms, apartment building, expansion of the fire and ambulance building, and currently the renovation of the Phillipsburg police station. These opportunities, especially in emergency repair and reconstruction projects, allowed us to demonstrate our capacity. However, many of these were made accessible to local firms like ours precisely because of their urgency. And while the timelines were demanding, the eligibility requirements were more flexible compared to the anticipated less urgent projects. We were aware that higher requirements could be expected over time for future projects, and we prepared for this by investing in our people, recruiting talent, and engaging with potential local and regional partners. So when the new tenders began rolling out 2023 and 2024, we thought we would be ready. We were mistaken. What stood out with these tenders, which included a library, 2 schools, sewage network expansion, and mental health facility, was not just the increased complexity of the tenders, it was a noticeable amount of foreign participants and little to no local participants. This is notable given the local architectural firms have consistently demonstrated strong interest in bidding for new public building projects in the past. For example, around 2019, there was a design process that was initiated by an independent group to advise the St. Maarten government regarding the new library, which would include museum and archaeological department. 6 local architects participated, and a few even completed conceptual designs, which they did for free. In Annex 8, you'll be able to see some of these designs. These designs were presented to the NRPB. Now, for whatever reason, this project didn't continue in that phase, and instead NRPB held a tender for the design and construction supervision for the library in combination with the new Charles Leopold Bell School. Although the NRPB did publish the tenders publicly, almost all local architects were unaware of the opportunity and were disappointed to have missed the chance to participate. This is especially concerning given that many of these architects had previously engaged with NRPB and were clearly known to the organization. After the limited local participation in the first design tender for the school and library, one might have anticipated that additional steps would be taken to ensure broader local awareness in future tenders, such as the one for the mental health facility. NRPB has, in other cases, such as appraisals, directly reached out to local firms. A similar courtesy in this instance could have made a meaningful difference. Meanwhile, foreign firms had no trouble finding the tender, and it's difficult to believe that firms an ocean away were independently monitoring procurement platforms for opportunities in St. Maarten without any prior indication or encouragement. If the intention is to promote local inclusion, then we believe that an extra effort should be made to ensure local firms are aware of tenders that they can participate in. A simple notification to known local professionals would have required little effort and would have gone a long way in supporting the stated goal of local capacity building. However, upon reviewing the tender documents, it became understandable why there may not have been broader outreach. The requirements were set at a very high threshold, and it's possible that there was an assumption that local architects might face challenges in meeting them. Still, they should have been given a shot. I'll give you an example. For the design of the Charles Leopold Bell School and a new library, IC was planning to place a bid in collaboration with multiple firms. However, our group couldn't pass the pre-qualification stage. The reason? We don't meet the following requirement. At least 3 successfully completed contracts during the last 7 years for detailed design, architectural works, and the supervision of construction of concrete buildings for public use projects such as schools, hospitals, community centers, hotels, and similar facilities with a construction value of at least $5 million each. If you look at this requirement strictly, it'd be very difficult for a local firm on St. Maarten to meet this threshold. Not because of lack of expertise, but because since 2017, our market has been focused entirely on post-Irma reconstruction. There simply haven't been a significant amount of new public buildings of that scale built on the island in that time period. Let's all remember that before 2017, St. Martin contractors and designers built numerous schools that were significantly larger than the proposed project. It's hard to believe that all of a sudden locals aren't capable to execute a project like this. You could see the contract award in Annex 4 for that project. When we informed about the high requirements such as these, we've been told these requirements are determined by World Bank rules and there's not much NRPB or the St. Martin government can do about it. But these requirements are ultimately human decisions, open to interpretation of the rules and certainly not carved in stone. Instead of a requirement of 3 projects of 5 million, why not 2 projects of 3 million? Where do these numbers actually come from? Someone decided on this. A possible idea would have been to perhaps lower this threshold for the school and library project by simply splitting it in 2 projects instead of 1, which actually looks to be more logical considering the distance from each other and the completely different functions that they have. You could split it even further by putting design contracts separate from the quality control during construction. Then you have 4 separate projects. I mean, right now, we all see the recent news in the newspaper about Marie-Laurent School having to retender. Now they're capable to split it up. Why not before? Some would argue that bundling projects together is more efficient. Well, have you know that the World Bank promotes a fit-for-purpose procurement strategy, one that adapts to the size, risk, and capacity of the market. In St. Martin, bundling projects into oversized contracts would exclude capable local firms, not because of quality, but because of scale. The decision to bundle projects like this is not fit for purpose. It was misaligned with both the market realities and the Trust Fund's own strategic goals of building local capacity and resilience. Regarding cost efficiency, we should take into consideration the real cost when contracting a foreign firm. Time delays, say for permits, overhead, flight and hotel, missed economic benefits, taxes that local companies pay, and exclusion of capable local firms. When projects are too large for local firms to qualify, they don't bid. That means fewer bidders and less price competition. I think in Annex 5 and 6, you would see the difference between when the requirements went higher and what happened when you put the when the requirements lower. Less people participate when the requirements were higher. When projects are too large for local firms to qualify, they don't bid. Yeah, I said that part before. Smaller tenders encourage more local participation and competitive pricing. Breaking down projects doesn't just make them affordable to locals, it makes them fit for purpose, as the World Bank itself requires. I would like to go back to what is written in the strategic framework. In Annex 1, I refer to this quote, local labor, and it's also mentioned by both Hans and Leroy, local labor will be leveraged to the greatest possible extent, also within the framework of World Bank procurement regulations. If that's our guiding principle, then we must examine whether current practices truly reflect that mandate. In the World Bank's procurement regulations for IPF borrowers, it is explained that points are awarded during evaluation for technical and financial merit. For the technical scoring for consultants, there is a table that shows the possible points per section that can be allocated. You can see this back in Annex 3. It mentions methodology, 20 to 50 points, relevant experience and qualification of key staff, 30 to 60 points, relevant experience of firm, 0 to 10 points. And here are the important points that I wanted to draw attention to. Nationals among key personnel, 0 to 10 points. Transfer of knowledge, 0 to 10 points. That has to do with transferring knowledge from the professional foreign consultant over to the local stakeholder or the key or non-key personnel. If the goal is to build local capacity and make use of national expertise, then the evaluation criteria should support that. This means awarding as many points as possible for including nationals and for transferring knowledge. However, across several consultancy tenders issued under the recovery program 2023-2024, we've observed a concerning pattern. Many offered no or limited points for national participation. Regarding points for transfer of knowledge, we haven't seen any consultancy tender that awards points for this. I'm not saying this doesn't exist in other World Bank projects, but for consultancy, I haven't seen it.